this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary. You are listening, hopefully watching, Inside the C-Suite podcast. Today we have John on. We're going to learn his story, his journey. John, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
I'm doing
Oh,
well.
wonderful.
Ryan, how are
Awesome.
you doing?
I'm fantastic, man.
So,
I'm excited to
I-
record today.
yes,
Actually
yes.
record today.
Actually hit the button. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a founder, a CEO for Businessolver. Businessolver is very popular this time of year. We do provide the software and service around employee benefits, and a lot of annual enrollments going on this time of year.
That's
What is
right.
annual enrollment? Never
Well,
heard of
yeah,
Yeah,
do
right.
tell.
Yeah, it's that torture chamber that we put employees through once a year, typically in
Yeah,
November, where they have to go out and make all their elections around their employee
yeah,
benefits. So all
yeah.
those acronyms and fun
Oh, yeah.
things we call them, because they're insurance benefits typically, but all kinds of benefits. We send employees out there and they've got to use our software to figure out what's right for them. And hopefully they make great decisions. We try and help them make great decisions, but it's a big decision tree for sure.
It is. And because they're looking at their employees, their audience, if you will, and they're changing all the time. What they
Yep.
need is changing, what they consume is changing. And you're the software layer for the benefits enrollment folks, benefits administration, if you will, and HR,
Yep.
and the employee base. So do
Yes.
the employees go into Benefit Solver or Business
Yeah.
Solver and then select the things that they want to select?
Yeah. We're like the gateway, right? So
Yep.
we help them get through, give them, think about it like TurboTax for benefits. We try and take the complex, make it more simple, and then really from there, everything happens behind the scenes,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and we're taking that data and we're making sure it's, audited, and then we're sending it to every individual carrier, and then we're reconciling back to the employer's payroll, making sure those deductions are right, and then dealing with all the billing elements so that employers pay correctly as well. And then that happens 24/7, 365 for new hires, acquisitions, mergers, things like that.
Right.
Um, and then, of course, this time of year, that's when a lot of employers choose to open up their employee benefits period so they can go and make elections for next year.
So we're going to spend today talking about you, learning all about you, what makes you tick, and how you've gotten to where you've gotten. But I have to ask, where in the world did you come up with this idea, and why did you jump into this? I mean,
Yeah, it's
I'm feeling kind of anxious right now, just knowing that you reminded me I need to go in and make my selection.
Same
My
thing.
yeah,
wife,
Same
God
thing.
forbid, finds out that I'm saying this live because
yeah,
she thinks it's probably done already, but it's not.
100%. 100%.
yeah. I mean, Ryan, there's so many. I mean, you know, if you go all the way back, I mean, a lot of this started with when I was first introduced to it. It was like paper and pen, and you were
Yep.
actually as an
Mm.
employee
Right,
making your
yeah.
elections, and then you were also doing the funniest thing I found really funny is you're doing your own calculations around
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
you know how much
Oh,
disability
Yeah,
or life
yeah.
insurance you wanted, and then you
You
were
had that little
calculating.
worksheet. You had that little
Yeah,
worksheet to work
yeah,
through. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, right. Which is a nightmare. Think about how many times
yeah.
employees get the math wrong,
oh.
made their
I'm not sure I
elections wrong.
ever got it right.
Right, I know.
So,
And so, yeah, it's a funny story. I didn't start out thinking I wanted to be in insurance.
right.
I thought insurance was like, old guy's job. I don't know what I thought. I thought like of
I've had this similar thought. So if you're
yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought like a bowler cap and like a briefcase. But I ended up going to graduate school at Iowa State University. Um,
Cyclones.
yeah, the Cyclones were having a good football season. I
You
don't
are
know what
having a
happened.
good football season up until last weekend.
No,
But
it
we,
was crazy, crazy
yeah,
loss. I don't know what happened.
yeah.
And it was summer of my second year, and I had a good friend in the program who was like, I think this job is more your style. I was doing a little known degree called industrial relations. Um,
IO.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And he said there's this insurance agency that has a consulting practice. And so I took a job there. Um, started as an intern. At the end of the internship, they hired me, and I had no idea what insurance was about, right? Like, and the consulting was really kind of more on the HR side, but ultimately that pulled you into all the insurance problems as well because you were solving for both.
Right.
Um, and I was introduced to the CEO there of that agency, and he's like, "Listen, eventually, this took a while. He's like, listen, I think you can do something different. I'm going to introduce you to another smart guy, and you guys should figure out a company because you're both smart and you'll figure something out." And so Sean McMurray, my friend and partner in the business, and he had another partner as well. The four of us um, sat down and said, what can we do? What's possible, and how can we get funding? So we came up with a whole bunch of solvers. Like we were solving everything, uh, anything and everything around insurance and HR problems. And the one that ultimately we committed to and stuck was Benefit Solver. As you mentioned, a platform that now is very different than where we started. But
Mm-hmm.
it was just a pain. Like, so, you were trying to find pain points. And one of the big pain points was just what we talked about, which is this time of year, you had HR departments, benefits departments had stacks and stacks and reams of paper. It was like, you know, this time of year, the way I think about it is trying to process a whole bunch of ballots. You're trying to process a whole bunch of elections, and then you're trying to get it into the carrier system so employees can actually use their benefits. Well, the fact of the matter is that kind of election process was so bad that you would get to the next year and the carriers were just wrapping up what you did last year. And because, so many errors on those election forms, so many times going back, you can't read the handwriting. So the data was bad, the elections were bad, employees would find out when they went to use their benefits. And so it was just really messy. And that has nothing to do with the dollars and cents that are attached to that, right? So just the election process was a mess, but then all the dollars, deductions, what to pay carriers, what to get money back, retros. Think of all the retros. Like you got it wrong and then you had to fix it. And so we just, we looked at it and it was messy and there was a great desire to do it. However, the thing that we got out in front of that we are probably a little early on, because this was 1998, 99, was we believed that the internet was the right place to launch us to do this, not on-prem kind of software. And, I think we take for granted now. Back then, we were basically just selling that the internet was safe and that you could put your social security number in there. And this was possible and this was the
Oh yeah.
thing, right?
Oh yeah.
It's always possible.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But people were afraid of it. Like they're going to
Oh
take all my
yeah.
information.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like AI. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
there's a
it
lot of
is.
similarities between the two.
Yes.
It's like we know that AI is great. We're also terrified that AI of AI.
Mm, see,
Yes.
I trust AI more because of what we went through back then. Like I can
Yeah.
remember my
No, that's
parents
fair.
like flipping out on me when I made my first purchase on eBay. Like
Yeah.
forget it. I was
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
public enemy number one.
Yeah. You gave us
Um,
Social Security. You gave your credit
I
card.
you gave your credit card to those? Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God,
Now,
they're gonna
now, yeah.
sell
Now
it.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, John, what I love about what you're describing here is, and maybe you could talk to it a little bit. You graduate. You were in graduate school. Took an internship. You got a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were really good. You excelled. Someone thought you were smart enough that you should be introduced to some other smart people to go solve a problem.
Yeah.
Sounds almost like a business class where you're put together into a group, go and brainstorm a new business or solve a problem and bring it out to market. And a lot of people that listen to this show might be in that situation
Yeah.
where they're going to school or they're in school or they don't kind of know where they're headed when they leave school, internships, etc. Maybe talk to that experience a little bit and how that shaped where you're at now.
Yeah. I mean, it's it was a very different time, right? The internet was new. I recently talked to an entrepreneur, um, and she was like, "Tell me your story." And I'm like, "Gosh, I haven't done this recollection in a long time."
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, it's one thing to have a good idea. It's another thing to find funding, and it's
That's right.
another thing to then turn it into a business. So I think having a good community or having a good team, and then there's just hard work and good fortune.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, I think it's all those things. You have to have a good idea. You have to tirelessly work at it if you want to make it happen. You have to take the risk, and ultimately,
Timing.
timing is everything. But
Hmm.
you got to be surrounded by good people that are committed to the idea as well. It's never one person, right? In
Did
my view,
I
it's always a team.
did I hear you say you had three partners? So there's four of you
Yeah, yeah.
at the beginning. Is it still four of you 20 something years later?
Unfortunately, my good friend and mentor just passed, so
Oh,
there's
bless him.
just yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's three of us that were really passionate about making it work.
Right.
Uh, I was the only one that made it my complete day job. Uh,
Right.
so that was a big risk.
Yeah.
Um, so I resigned or left the insurance agency and ran with this. And it was, when you start with zero clients and kind of zero, I guess I had one
Hmm.
employee to start, it's, you feel pretty naked on
Oh yeah.
the future.
Were you married or were you in a relationship at the time?
I was not married at the
Okay.
time, but yeah, of course, was in
I
a
could
relationship, and
I could see some
I mean,
pressure there. Uh,
yeah, I mean, I was young enough, so it was like, I mean, I can go get another job, but do I want a
right.
job? I want to try this. And once we got funding, it was like, okay, it's real. Now we need to make this vision happen, which, that was just tireless kind of, getting client number one, getting the software built, refining the software, then getting client number one through 10 was, you know, it was an
Uh,
interesting
push.
journey. You're
Yeah.
selling yourself and the vision and the
That's right.
pain, and you're hoping that they buy in.
You're pushing a boulder uphill at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
could see
So
that.
we do a lot of advisory where a lot of these companies are going after their first
Hmm.
customer, and we
Yeah.
we see the pain, and I'm kind of like, love to give advice, but I'm glad I'm not doing that right now.
It's it's
I
tough, man.
feel you, brother. Like I feel the pain.
Well, Ryan, when you're
Yeah.
in staffing, you deal with a lot of rejection management, but
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because as a recruiter, you put a job in front of somebody and they're like, "Yeah, not me." Okay, so you deal with that a lot. But this is different because it's your baby. Like if it's a job,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, somebody says yes, somebody says no, you can kind of
Oh, gotcha.
e- emotionally disconnect from it. But when it's your baby and you
Sure.
built the
It's
software and
very
you've
different.
architected it and someone says, "Yeah, I don't get it."
Yeah.
That's like a stake through the heart.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard to shake that off, especially, if you've laid out the entire, because when you initially did it, still to this day, you took a very inefficient, ineffective process and made it eloquent, made it
Yeah.
easy, you made it eloquent. But back then, I could see customers going, you know what? I think we're good. Yeah, I think the reams of paper, it works.
Yeah.
Not really, but it works, and everybody seems happy. It's like, okay, neither of those are true, but it's hard to argue with a CEO or CFO. It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a three-step process. First step was you have to sell that the internet's safe and this is a way of becoming more efficient.
Right.
And that, the byproduct is once you got those elections that the carriers would actually receive them. I mean, this is going to date me, but I do remember, some of the smaller carriers, literally they would say, well, we're not a big fan of this because we have keyers that are union keyers,
Yep.
and literally we don't want to file.
Right.
Um,
Send
so you
us a
had to get
stat.
yeah, so you had to get through that, like, okay, I got them to adopt. Now they have, a bunch of different carriers. Can we actually send data to those carriers? Will they accept it? And figure that out. And then the second phase was, okay, well, who's the user of this software? And that we accept it now just easily, right? That
Yeah, benefits
employees are going
admin.
to
Yeah,
go in and do this. But I literally remember sitting down with a large teaching association that had a benefit plan, and then in a room of administrators looking at me like I was crazy because they were like, "No, no, no, we do that." So
that's that's
that's
that's our
that's
job.
that's our job. Employees will never be able to figure this out, and your software won't be good enough. So we're still going to take the forms and then we'll key them into your system. And
Well, that
and
makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
some of that's also job security. So
yes,
some of that had nothing to do with the
yeah,
employees, had everything
yes.
to do with they were really good at their job, they liked their job, and they wanted to keep their job.
And they felt like, they were
Yeah,
helpful. They would sit down with
yeah,
employees and they would
that's
counsel
right.
them, and they got value out of that, and they felt like it was effective. And, perhaps at the time the software wasn't as good as it is today from a consumerism perspective.
Right.
But, it goes to the kind of any technologist dilemma, which is you're always future fighting, as I like to call it. If you get too far out there or they don't get your concept, you'll be fighting the future because they just can't see it that way.
Right. So, Ryan, you want to go back?
Go for it.
High school ish. What was the dream? What did you want to be?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've talked to a lot of founder entrepreneurs. I was in the thick of just working hard and surviving. And I was a cross country and track, so it was two seasons, but you're running all the time.
All the time.
And I think it made me appreciate a work ethic, get through a lot of pain. Uh, I don't understand the runners who don't find it painful.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
you lost me at running. Like that's where you
Yeah,
Yeah.
lost me in this conversation.
yeah.
I got a
And
14-year-old, same thing. Although he has basketball in the middle of those two, but yeah, same.
then I, go to college and get through college. When I was in college, it was like, I think I want to understand how people think. I want to get a psychology degree, and I think my parents like, you want to do what? And what are you going to do with that?
What are you gonna do
I
with
had that
that?
same thought, John. I was like, this is
Yeah,
really, it was
yeah.
really interesting to me. And I got that same response. So I never did it.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that? Which is crazy to think of now, because so many of the people that have humanities degrees, degree in philosophy or something like that, they're actually poised better to do AI and Gen AI than some of the folks in the hard sciences. So, like, what are you going to do with that? Shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a parental question. But
I mean,
if they're,
it was a practical question,
it
right?
was,
And
right?
I probably didn't have a good answer, but I just felt like if I can figure out how people think
I,
and how people tick, then I'm probably going to be in a better position to do many things. And that was kind of my theory on industrial relations, which is if I can figure out organizational psychology and if I can figure out, kind of the mix of business and economics, and it's a
yeah.
multi-discipline degree, I'm going to be in a better spot. I
Well,
do
knowing
think,
how people think, like
yes, in
it serves
organizations,
everything. Yeah.
yes, and leaders, and then I think it helped me a lot from when you start out with one employee and you go to, I always said it's something like 2,000. You have to think about culture and motivation and how
Right.
you get a team to come along with you. So I
Did
think
you ever have
everybody
to?
should do that.
This could be a me thing, but my undergrad was in art history, and I remember because I'd seen my parents, through the year, but I remember coming up with a story, like having a story ready made. So when anybody, brothers or anybody else asked, "What are you going to do with art history?" I knew exactly what I'd tell them. I don't know if that was true. I just knew what I would tell them just to stop the conversation.
Yeah.
So I think some folks that got English degrees or feminist degrees or whatever, um, they had stories on what they were going to do with it. And again, they were just stories. Whether or not that ever played out that way, doesn't
I
really
feel like
matter.
we should do a role play and ask you, what are you going to do with this art history degree, William?
I'm a curator of a museum. I want to be a curator of a modern art museum.
Like it.
So I'd have to start off with
I'd
getting a
buy it.
master's, an
Yeah.
MFA, possibly a PhD, then work on the gallery scene, and then go into curating.
That
So
makes sense. I bought it.
It
see,
does. I
well,
got it.
I had it laid out to where it's like I'm just going to tell you a story. Now I have no idea if any of that will play out. However, neither do you.
Yeah.
So, so that's how I get out of
So,
those conversations. I just preempt it.
yeah.
Just get in
It's
front of it,
awesome.
Yeah. So John, you're at 2,000 employees now.
ish.
Yeah, it's about 2000.
Okay. So I'm fascinated with decision making.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to get better at it and be snappier at it, which I need some work, obviously. But how do you handle decision making? I'm always fascinated with that question.
I mean, I think Brian, it changes a lot. It changes a lot as the company grows.
Hmm.
In the beginning, it has to be, that's probably the knock on founders, right? The founders are passionate about their company and they tend to want to have control and they tend to want to be very involved and they've got their
Right.
fingerprints on a lot of
Hmm.
things. Um, and that can hurt companies from scaling and making decisions quickly and effectively. I think so. It's a tough thing because, you know, you want to stay involved because it is your baby, but you have to recognize where you can let go, and it kind of evolves and changes depending on who you have for shareholders, what stage of the company you're in,
Right.
um, what stage your leadership is in, how fully developed is your leadership team. Now we have a fully developed leadership team. For a while, we had no C titles.
That's right.
we,
Hmm.
you couldn't afford C titles. And you didn't, you had a much smaller decision making set of folks around you. And so it's very much changed. I think at this point in the evolution of the company, we've got really strong people at, you know, all levels in the organization. And we're fortunate to have those individuals. But I think at the end of the day, still as a founder, I'll get in there on things that I think matter, especially as it relates to customers, employees, etc., and let my voice be heard. Because ultimately, with a board and professional investors, I mean, at this point we have three private equity partners.
Yep.
You have to be accountable to your shareholders, and you have to make sure the company's driving to their outcomes. All three constituents: shareholders, employees, and clients.
It reminds me, Ryan, of the CEO and founder of Lovesac was
Yep.
saying, I need to be the weakest link. And so
Yep.
I remember hiring someone in supply chain, chief supply chain officer, whatever the bit was. And like, they know more about supply chain than I'll ever know. In fact, I don't want to know what they know. I just want them to be able to do what they can do better than anybody else. And it seems like at one point you transcended into that space and just said, I need to hire these different positions that
Hmm.
augment, what my skill set is, whatever that may be. And I need the best. I need smart people. I need them to be able to do things without me in a
Yeah,
lot of regards.
it becomes a relief when you find, like, I mean,
But is there a
yeah,
sense of like so and I ask this question all the time because I can kind of
yeah,
I feel like people want to say one thing and they don't, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So it's a
Yeah.
sense
yeah.
of relief, but is there also a sense of dang, I'm no longer needed here?
No, not at all.
Like, do you ever get that feeling like I could go away, which is a good thing, right? Like you could go on a 3 week vacation and nothing changes. Right? The
You're,
company doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
But is there that feeling of am I as
huh?
valuable as I thought I was? Like, do
I
you
mean,
like how do you wrestle with that?
yeah, I mean, I won't BS you. I mean, I've got lots of employees from lots of different generations in the company, and they would tell you, like, when I got I, we took our first private equity partner. Part of what they were trying to provide was structure, think we were something like,
Mhm.
50 million in revenue. And I'd never had a CFO before, never. I mean, I had a
Right.
controller,
Right.
uh, and that
All
was
the
about
accounting
it.
staff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, effectively, I was managing accounting and finance, probably not the best use of my skills. And
No judgment. No
and,
judgment.
It made
you
it.
know, and
How do you
when
make a
you've,
pivot table? I don't
yeah,
understand.
yeah, when you get to the place where, I'll never forget, like, I think we had 13 employees. We had to do a layoff. We had to make a decision back to all those solvers. It was like, we got to commit to one thing that we're going to be good at and just run with it, or we're going to run out of money.
Right.
That sticks with you. And so you never want to let control of,
Mm.
you never want to be in that spot again. And so I was literally signing every check that was going out the door to stay on top of everything that was
Right.
happening. And back to my relief point, when you get somebody that, you know, shares that vision of, we've got to be good stewards of the company, we've got to watch, what we're doing here. Yeah, it becomes hard because it's not so much you have a fear of being replaced. It's like, oh my gosh, I let go of that control.
Mhm.
Are they going to share the same view as me, or are we going to go back to that bad place? And so, when you get them on board, you can see that they're making a difference in the company, and then it's a sense of relief. Like, I don't have to worry about that anymore. They've
Right.
Right.
got that. But by the way, if you want to be an entrepreneur and founder, I've never taken a 3 consecutive week vacation.
No, there's no such thing.
Never.
No
Uh,
such thing.
you don't even get to do that in corporate. So if you do that
Yeah,
on your
yeah,
own, that's a problem. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I think the thing about giving up control, because you were signing every check, and if the company was small enough, you were probably checking the mail way back when. And when mail was a thing, and all of a sudden they'd
yeah,
drop it in your office, and then you'd be like, because it was a way to kind of keep up with what's going on.
yeah.
It was a weird,
No,
weird way to kind of like, okay, who's sending us mail?
yeah. And now we just don't want any mail. It's like,
Hundred
don't send any
percent.
mail.
Don't.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the love, why?
Please, 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 no mail.
No mail. No, not at all. That's hilarious. And you've rounded out your leadership team,
Yeah,
so you're good there. You've got two other private equity partners.
yeah.
What's the next iteration of the company, you think?
Well, I mean, I think that we've had a lot of success. I mean, we had the COVID years, as I'll call
Right.
them,
Right.
where
Mm.
everybody just kind of like froze. Like, what does this mean? And it was a lot of, what I'll call yo-yoing between start, stop, like, are we going to get back to normal? Are we not going to get back to normal? And kind of everybody in the benefits world kind of hunkered down, and benefits were very important, but people didn't want to make, changes because budgets were uncertain. Everything was uncertain.
Right.
So I would say that, while we had decent years through it. I would say this year is our first kind of back to normal year. Long way to get your question, but we're back in what I would say is significant growth mode, significant change and adoption by, especially enterprise employers saying, we do need more modern technology. We do need to have a solution that has AI running in the background to serve our employees better. Give them better answers, quicker answers,
Right.
and it needs to be 24/7. And we're not going to staff people to take calls 24/7. So you've got to have better solutions by mobile, better solutions in chat, and kind of those off hours. Ironically, through COVID, employees and employers moved to doing things later and later in their day. And so they're making these decisions later in the day, and they expect the same level of support. But the long answer to that is, we're just trying to become the dominant market leader, and part of our domination is also driving a better solution, which is people, for a long time, we've been working on how can we give them software that helps them be better consumers and be more confident in their selection, because you spend a lot of money on this, and employers spend a lot of money on these things we call benefits.
Yep.
The second phase of it is really help working with the carriers to help employees better use their benefits. So working with the insurance carriers to anticipate when you've had a claim so you can make sure that your insurance benefits actually work. And then the next level of this we've been talking about for a long time, but we're getting better and better at it is marketing the benefit program to
Hmm.
employees. So that's part of a kind of dual-sided coin there. Working with the carriers to identify if you had a claim and serving that up so you don't have to figure it out, but also letting you know that you have these benefits and letting you know when and how you should use these benefits. Because you kind of forget how all that works, right? When do I know you've had folks on that are working on mental or financial wellness. A lot of
Hmm.
employees don't understand that they already have those benefits embedded in their program.
That's right.
And it's a very emotional thing, right? Like when I need my benefits, am I in the right frame of mind go to go do research on my benefit program? Probably
Probably not.
not.
Probably not.
So
No.
that's a big journey to really help the organization evolve from just being somebody who helps you get enrolled in your benefits to somebody who's you're actually smart about your benefits because the software and the service is helping you become more intelligent about how to use your benefits.
I can see that especially with mental health. If you're going through some type of episode, the last thing you're going to do is get into your benefits software and then search for some type of solution. You're on an island and you're
100%.
dealing with something. Um, I wanted to ask you about mentoring. So going back to when you're at the insurance company, and
Yeah.
here, I mean, this is a big risk actually for your mentor to then say, "You're good. You don't need to do this,"
Yeah.
because he could have very well kept you because
Yeah.
you were good. You know, and
Yeah.
a lot of bad managers, a lot of bad managers, that's what they do. They find really talented people and then they keep them in that spot.
Yeah.
And it was bold for
It
him to then
was.
say, "You're smart. I got some other smart folks. You need to go do this thing." So how's that changed your outlook on mentoring, even with your own company or people that you know?
Yeah, it was really bold. I don't think I fully appreciated it until, I was long down the journey. But he just had a long tradition of doing that and did it for many, many years. I think, in a company where you have employees that stay with you for a very long time, I think one of the things you have to be thoughtful about is letting them go or helping them go if their journey has, you know, stagnated, hit a dead end. And so I think the hardest thing is, getting the honest dialogue with employees around. It's a very scary thing, right?
Yeah.
For employees and employers. But I think it's a very good thing if you can have an honest dialogue about, I don't think you're going to hit your full potential here. Um, I want to support you. So I often say, like you'll have I've had many longtime employees move on to something else. And what I always say is like, listen, I'm happy for you, but is there anything I can do to help you evaluate your opportunity now or in the future? But you should always feel like you can move to another opportunity, but you should always, if you have a good relationship, work with your current employer to say, how can I get the best opportunity? I've said to many, like, I will introduce you to one of our best recruiters so you can get to the best outcome. But it's amazing to me how many times, employees don't do that and don't take the
Mm.
chance to say, I want to have this honest dialogue or this conversation with you. And going all the way back, I mean, that is the conversation we had, which is I was in a consulting role where I felt like, listen, I'm never going to be able to fully maximize my career here, or my potential here, but I like the idea of starting something new and doing something new. So, I think good mentors push you to do that, and it's a gift, really.
It's a quick follow-up. I think the hardest thing about that is people that are comfortable in their position. Like they love their job, they love the team that they're working with, they love their customers, etc., and they're just happy. So, I mean, it's this kind of conflict of ambition and happiness. And some people are very ambitious, and so they're kind of looking to the next place that pushes them, etc. And some people get to a place they're just like they're content.
Yeah.
They're totally competent at their job, like none of that stuff. Like they're just they're living their best life. They don't want to do something different. They don't want to go and reinvent themselves at a new place and do something else. Like how to know which one's which is,
Yeah.
thank God you have a psychology degree because I couldn't figure it out. Uh,
It goes back to like, you know, what's the makeup of your company? What's the DNA of
Mhm.
your company? What's the DNA of you? And, we just went through our sales kickoff, and I'm a big Formula One fan. And if you follow Formula One, Total Wolf has a pretty cool podcast out there. But, what he said is high performing teams need to fight complacency.
mm,
And, complacency can creep in. And then, your winning record kind of goes south on you, which is exactly what happened to Mercedes. So that was kind of in its retrospective, but it depends what you want too.
right.
I mean, if there are periods in time in life where if you've got you know several other stressors, whether it's dependence or otherwise, it might be okay to be in that place, and that's a good place for you. And so I think it's about where you are in life, what's your DNA, and what's the DNA of the company that you live in. And so I think those are the things you have to balance out.
So, John, final question for me as we come to a close here is more about sacrifice. You don't go from four initial employees to 2,000 ish employees by mistake, right? There's a lot of sacrifice in there.
Yeah.
I want to dig into that a little bit. Maybe I guess the question is, what are the sacrifices that you make or have made that others haven't or aren't making in order to get to this success level?
You want them in alphabetical order?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Alphabetical. And I mean,
Chronological?
I'm always, and I'll say I'm curious because
It's a great
I
question.
so many people like they look at success, and you probably hear, oh, must be nice. They always, you kind of get that
Yeah, they have no
response
idea.
from people. You're on your boat.
Yeah.
Must be nice. Oh, yeah. And I work 17 hours a day and I've done it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I've grown a business from 0 to 2,000 people. But like, what are those sacrifices that people don't see?
Oh, wow. That's a
Do we need
tough
another
question.
hour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
It's a
I
great
mean,
question.
it
It's a
is a
great
great
question.
question. I don't know if I call it sacrifices. I'd call it trade-offs. So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
uh, my wife, Ray, is in the business as well and has been, for a very long time,
Hmm.
2000, 2001, 2000, 2000 to
Wow. Very,
2001.
very early. Okay.
And she's a chief strategy officer. So,
Yeah.
um, I think our two boys had to, you know, they had to deal with kind of absentee parents at times. There's no doubt about it.
Hmm.
But they
Um,
know more about benefits than their peers. I can tell
they
you
know a
that.
lot. They inherently know a lot. They inherently heard a lot of business discussions,
Right.
um, and they and they definitely get it. But it's time. Yeah, looking back on it, I mean, you think about all the baseball games you missed, the basketball games you
Yeah.
missed, the trade-offs you just had to make because you had to travel, and travel a lot. I mean, lots and lots of time away from them, of course, and lots of time in the business. I mean,
Mhm.
my, Ray would say that COVID saved us, uh,
Hmm.
because we used to go in at, 6 in the morning and we'd leave at 7 o'clock at night and then go have dinner and, do it all over again. And we do that over and over again. So COVID made you step back and find some balance. You couldn't go into the office. It was like non-functional for at least 2 weeks, and figuring out what does it mean not to go directly to my office. But it's probably just time and your family sacrificing, around the business, because you don't have a choice. Like
Right.
if you don't do it, it's not probably going to get done. And at different times in the business, it's so needy that, you've made a commitment to every employee that's there as well. And, for a long time, employees knew, it took a lot of pride in, I'm employee number 25, or I'm employee number 100, I'm
Right.
employee number 200. They're very committed to the business, still are today. And so it's your commitment to them and to your clients that becomes massive as well. And so I would say it's just the trade-offs, it's not for everyone because you are going to have to make trade-offs. And
Right.
most of those trade-offs impact your family. And it's not just your
Right.
kids, it's your extended family. It's the, holiday things you can't go to. It's, and then on top of it, this business chooses to do everything in November and December.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, there's no holidays there. No worries. You can
yeah,
skip those.
Christmas is in July for that families. Yes.
100%. 100%.
I
Ray,
remember the first blow up I had when we were on a ski vacation. And it was one of our largest clients. And he said to me, "You chose to have you and Ray in the business. You can't both be go on vacation at the same time."
nice.
And
Wow.
it was
Like
Nice.
like
president,
that.
vice president can't fly together, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of my first, like I got, I got it. Like, this is a trade-off I need to handle. Um, but I mean,
Still painful to hear.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Brother, this has been absolutely fantastic. John, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for so much time and wisdom. We appreciate you.